Yes, what's going on, guys? My name is The Instinct, and today I welcome you to a brand new series. This is the Premier League Review, a weekly podcast style episode where I will be discussing the Premier League results from the past game week and where I think teams will be finishing at the end of this season and where the next game week could possibly go. This episode is exclusively live on YouTube and it will be coming to you every single week. This is the pilot episode, so there is no guest on this week, but from week 2 there will be guests. Now, the interesting part for this is that there is a surprise. Yes, I told you guys on my Instagram that you would be viewing this episode on YouTube, which you are. However, I am working to get this podcast uploaded on to Spotify. So you don't have to listen to me waffle on for 20 minutes and you just look at your screen for 20 minutes into obscurity and get bored. So I've decided off my own back that I will be recording this on Spotify too, so you can view this, listen to this whilst you're going to work, whilst you're going to school, whilst you're going to your mate's house, whilst you're going to the shop to get some food. Whatever you are doing in your day, you can listen to this podcast, and hopefully this is the start of something bright. Now, as I mentioned, we're just going to get a bit of past, back history to this series idea and why I've decided to re-pursue it. Way back when, in about 2015, 2016, I think all the way up until about 2017, 18, I did this weekly episode series, or even sometimes daily in the summer, where I would do the summer transfer window and wrap up the confirmed deals, the rumours, just give a full review and roundup of everything that was happening in the Premier League, Championship, League One, League Two, and even some European leagues. But then I decided to stop that and I privated all my videos, and didn't really touch YouTube until about 2020, 2021. And then guess what? We know what happened. All the videos got privated again. But this time, I am 100% going for it because I've got a big plan for this series. I don't expect this to be something that just lasts for the rest of this Premier League season and then just drifts off. I've got a lot of plans ready for this, and this will be a permanent statement on my channel. Obviously when we are in the off season, so the summer transfer window, for instance, or in a World Cup break, if we have that again during a season, if we get that far with this podcast, I will just fill it up with transfer rumours or just general news updates. So it'll be a bit of a shorter one. But that, I think, is enough backstory, and I'm going to kick it off, really. So the first result I want to talk about is the result that I've got here to my left-hand side, which was Southampton 1, Manchester City 4. A brilliant game at the St Mary's Stadium. Haaland obviously now reaching more goals than Chelsea Football Club and 8 other Premier League clubs as well. A ridiculous goal scorer, obviously scored a bicycle kick as well in this match. I don't really have much to say on Erling Haaland. I think my thoughts are pretty clear with him. He's just a goal machine. You put him in front of goal and 9 times out of 10 he's going to score if he's on top form. Jack Grealish as well, I think especially in the Liverpool game when we lost 4-1. By the way, I'm a Liverpool fan if you guys don't know already. But yeah, Jack Grealish really impressed in the 4-1 results, and he impressed again by getting himself another goal, being a poacher on the rebound of his own shot to put it into the back of the net and to put them 3-1 up at that point. 3-0 up at that point. It was a good performance for Manchester City. Nothing really to add. For Southampton, it's not looking good for them in their relegation battle because there's about 7 teams at the bottom of the league where any one of them could go down. But for Manchester City, they are now closing the gap on Arsenal, who, as of recording this episode, have just drew to Liverpool 2-2. I'll get into that later on. So for Southampton, they are now sitting at the bottom of the league table. They are about, what are they on, 23? So they're about 4 or 5 points away from safety. And obviously we know in the fight against relegation, that is nothing. Southampton could win one game like Bournemouth did and then go all the way up to 15th, which is where Bournemouth are. So, that is a very close quartered battle. In terms of where I think Southampton and Manchester City could go, I think Manchester City will stay second, and I do think Southampton will go down. I had that in my pre-season prediction that Southampton would go down alongside Bournemouth, so I don't think there's going to be any change there. In terms of the next game I want to talk about, so this is how quick it's going to be. It's going to be like a quick 30-second review of the scores, what happens, what my thoughts are. If anyone impressed, I'll let you know, stuff like that. So the next game is Manchester United 2, Everton 0. Sean Dyche's Everton losing, which is not a good result for them. They now currently sit on the same amount of points as Nottingham Forest in 17th position, and obviously have a bit of a difference in goals. So at the minute, they just sit above them on goal difference. But Manchester United, I mean, I had a prediction with somebody at the start of this season that they would make top four. Even when they lost the first 2 games of the season, especially the second one to Brentford, I still had the belief that Man United would get top 4, and I still do. They've got a game in hand on Tottenham and currently sit 3 points ahead of Tottenham and on the same points as Newcastle. And I do think United will be securing top 4. It was a great performance from them. Another goal for Scott McTominay. Obviously, he had a good international break for Scotland against Spain, so he's come back to United and got on the score sheet. In addition to that, ice cold Martial got onto the score sheet, which was a bit of a surprise. But Marcus Rashford, I think, is going to be a bit of a worrying performance here because he came off with an injury. But from what I've read over the last day or so, in the last 10 hours, I don't believe it's anything major, and I believe he should be back in for Manchester United's next game. In terms of Everton, this is obviously a big defeat for them. They had 15 shots in this game, only 1 on target. And as I said before, they sit 1 place above the relegation zone and on goal difference are ahead of Nottingham Forest. But they will have a bit of a difficult end to the season, I think, Everton. I think I'm going to repeat this statement for Leicester, Nottingham Forest, Leeds, Bournemouth, West Ham, even potentially Wolves, Crystal Palace. I think it's going to go really down to the wire. From 12th all the way down to 20th. That's all fine. Moving on to the next game that I'm going to talk about, Fulham versus West Ham. Fulham have actually lost a lot of games recently. They were Europa League / Conference League pushers maybe to challenge the likes of Aston Villa, Tottenham, Brighton, Liverpool, Brentford for the last European places. Now they've slipped all the way down to 10th and are joint on points but ahead on goal difference of Chelsea and sit right in mid-table, just ahead of Chelsea. Another defeat for them and for Marco Silva. It's not looking good for them the last couple of games, but I did say, I think about a month ago, 2 months ago, that I said that they was overachieving. I don't think the squad is good enough for a European push as of yet. Maybe I could prove them wrong next season, but I don't think that squad is anywhere near good enough for a European push. So maybe next season, if they can get some good quality players in, maybe some midfielders or defenders, and maybe another backup goalie for Bernd Leno when he gets injured. And it's definitely a backup striker that's good enough to replace Mitrovic. Once they've sorted that out, I do think Fulham will be a very decent, I'd say, 8th, 9th place team, pushing Conference League, potentially pushing Europa League even, depending on the results. Because at the start of this season, I don't think anybody would have put Liverpool and Chelsea to be in 8th and 11th place with 9 games remaining of the season, or 8 games in Chelsea's case. For West Ham, on the other hand, a Harrison Reed own goal in the 23rd minute was enough for them to beat them at Craven Cottage. West Ham now sit 14th, which is, as said before, 3 points above Nottingham Forest, who currently occupy the final place in the relegation zone. I think again for West Ham, this is, I don't know what I think. I was watching Soccer Saturday, and I think Jeff Sterling or Paul Merson said something along this line, like West Ham in Europe have been exceptional. They've been really good in Europe, but then you come into the Premier League and they're fighting relegation. I just don't understand what's going on. They have world class players in there like Scamacca. Well, not world class, but decent enough players to be able to maintain a challenge in the Premier League. And in this case, you've got Scamacca in there, you've got Areola, you've got Aguard who's scoring a couple of goals. You've even got Aaron Cresswell, who on his day, if he stays consistent, is a decent enough left back. You've got Thomas Souček as well. You've got Declan Rice, who Arsenal, United, Tottenham want. So, there is good players in the squad, and I just don't understand why they are doing so terribly in the Premier League, especially considering their European form. But I do think West Ham are going to stay up. I'll get into my relegation prediction later on in this episode. So as of right now, I would say that we would see West Ham surviving, and definitely Fulham surviving. I think Fulham now will just end up finishing around mid-table, so 9th, 10th or 11th. I don't see them getting anywhere further up or down. Moving on into the next game, which was Aston Villa versus Nottingham Forest. Now, Nottingham Forest have been mentioned a lot of times in this episode so far. For Aston Villa, under Unai Emery, they've been, as much as I don't want to say it, since the World Cup, Aston Villa have been exceptional. Even since Unai Emery have took over, they've been really, really good. Obviously, when they was under Steven Gerrard, they was relegation threatened, which I didn't expect at the start of the season. I actually put Aston Villa again to be I think I put them 8th place, and now they're currently 6th due to other results. They've had an exceptional rise, and I didn't even realise they was 6th until I've just checked the table. They are only 9 points off Manchester United, who of course have a game in hand. So it's not impossible, to get Champions League football. But I think Aston Villa could get European football, which is what I said at the start of the season. They've brought in the good players. They've already got good players there. In this game, we saw Ollie Watkins score, and then Bertrand Traore, who's had a bit of a revamp in form. He came on very early on for an injured player. And since then, he's just gone on the last couple of games and scored a couple of goals. Ollie Watkins has scored a lot too recently. So for Aston Villa, I would say that they were definitely the better team and deserved the win. For Nottingham Forest, it's another crushing defeat. Obviously, I do have a soft spot for Nottingham Forest. So I don't want to see them going down. And not even just the fact that I have a soft spot for them. Whenever I look at Nottingham Forest, or whenever someone mentions Nottingham Forest to me, I always think of what I've read and seen, from the 90s, from the 80s, and even so before that. There was a Premier League team. There was an established First Division side. They're not a team that should be in the Championship, so it would be upsetting to see them go down at the first, attempt of being back in the top division. I definitely don't want to see that happen. So, if they go down, they go down. There's nothing we can do about it, but hopefully they don't. But it was another disappointing performance. Forest owner Evangelos Marinakas put out a statement in midweek stating that he had a message of support for Steve Cooper despite the pressure and despite the results not going the way that the owner and the fans want and the players even want, but also demanded an improvement in results. And obviously we hadn't seen that against Aston Villa, but I don't think they'll sack Steve Cooper this close to the end of the season. I think they'll keep with him. And if they get relegated, they'll have to rebuild from there. But if they survive, I don't even see Cooper staying, to be honest. I think at the end of the season, they'll sack him, regardless of if they stay up or go down, because I don't think the owner wants to see them battling relegation every season. I think he wants to see them pushing further and further up, especially with the money that they've been, invested in, with the signings they've made. They've made world-class signings too. We see the arrival of Keylor Navas in January. Hasn't done all too much, to be fair, Navas. He did start off well, but slowly just, letting a couple of goals, not really keeping the clean sheets that was probably expected of him. So, yeah, not good for Nottingham Forest. Another excellent performance for Unai Emery and Aston Villa. Next game we're going to quickly talk about is Leicester versus Bournemouth. Leicester 0, Bournemouth 1. Philip Billing scoring 5 minutes before half-time from an awful James Maddison back pass, which after the game he received hate of online, which again I just want to disclose for anybody watching. I don't condone hate or racial messages to any players after a match, after a performance, even if they do make a mistake. It's not fair. We need to stamp out hate because yes, James Maddison made an error, but it's not just James Maddison's fault. Yes, he made the error, but it's also about the team, whether the team can come back to win the game, which they didn't. But yeah, it's a first-off clanger from James Maddison, which really just allowed Philip Billing an easy finish past Daniel Everson. And for Bournemouth, Gary O'Neill, again, I put Bournemouth to go down with Southampton at the start of the season. But yes, they've been battling relegation, but there's some results in there that Bournemouth have really, really impressed in. And I think they're just going to keep going up and up and up. And we'll see what happens. I don't think this is the difficulty. Yes, they could go up and up and up because of the results that's happened recently, but I don't see it. I do think they will go down with Southampton at the end of the season. I'm definitely not being biased towards Nottingham Forest here, but I do genuinely see them going down with Southampton. I would probably say 19th, but again, who knows with the Premier League? We didn't expect to see how many teams? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teams battling in relegation, did we? So yeah, for Leicester as well, this was a big 6 points at the bottom of the league. Leicester now sit 19th, 2 points off Everton and Nottingham Forest, occupying the second relegation spot. Bournemouth now move 3 points clear of the relegation zone. For Leicester, there was a talk in midweek of them being interested in Jesse Marsh, of the former Leeds coach, USA manager. I think if he comes in, he would have to come in the summer. I don't think there's anything he can do now to turn this ship around for Leicester. I think they just need to see out the season and hopefully get the right results to stay up. I do see James Maddison leaving in the summer. I know Newcastle have been heavily interested in him, and there's been pictures apparently of him in Newcastle scarves that I saw in January. So I do think he'll leave probably to Newcastle in the summer. And yeah, I do think as well, I do just want to add on here, I do feel bad for Brendan Rodgers. Yes, obviously I understand why he got sacked, because in coaching, as a football coach myself for West Bromwich Albion, we do understand that results are everything. You have to perform to keep your job, really. And he didn't get the results, but at the same time, he didn't get the investment from the owners. They didn't really replace Kasper Schmeichel in goal, and now they're faced with Daniel Everson, who was playing for Rotherham United, I think it was, last season, playing League One football. They're stuck with a League One goalkeeper, effectively. Jamie Vardy's getting old. I know they have Patson Daka, but he isn't consistent enough to be able to replace Vardy. They didn't really get a midfielder in. They didn't get defenders in. Yes, they got Wout Faes and Harry Souttar, but they're not really too good. Like Harry Souttar, obviously I'm half Australian myself, so I have a bit of bias towards Harry Souttar. However, I just don't think he's good enough for the Premier League at the minute. So yeah, for Leicester, I think it's just going to be about seeing it out, hopefully trying to pick up results and avoid relegation. That's all I have on that game. This is going to be a big one that I think most people will be wanting to hear my opinion on. Brentford against Newcastle. This is a big game. There was a lot of controversy in this match when I was watching it on Soccer Saturday. Brentford had a couple of penalties that weren't given. Potentially Newcastle as well had their fair share of refereeing mistakes, which was also prevalent in the next game I'm going to talk about, between Tottenham and Brighton. But for Newcastle, another win for them to sustain their Champions League push. They now sit in third, joint on points with Man United, but ahead on goal difference. They also have a game in hand. I don't think they're going to catch up to. They're definitely not going to catch up to Arsenal or Man City at this point. So for them, I think it's just about just trying to get ahead of Tottenham really, and just stay in third or go down to fourth, but get Champions League football. Alexander Isak, also as of the last 4 or 5 games, has really come into form, showing the form that he had at Real Sociedad, and why the top teams wanted to sign him. And now he's starting to show that form, and really push Callum Wilson, who at the start of this season people were saying to start for England, alongside Harry Kane in the 4-4-2. So to really push Wilson at the starting lineup is a great achievement for Isak on a personal level. And I do like Isak as a player. He just needs to start being consistent like he has done in the last 4 or 5 games to keep his spot and to keep going, really. The other scorers in this game, Ivan Toney scoring a penalty. He obviously missed a penalty as well in this match. Ivan Toney, great striker. And for Brentford themselves, they sit currently 9th, 10 points behind Tottenham, 13 points behind Man United. So they're definitely not going to catch up to Europe, I don't think. To Champions League, but I do think they could get Conference League or Europa League football. I definitely think that's an option for them. Moving into another big game in the European Champions League hunt. Tottenham versus Brighton. This is a bit of a lively game, shall we say, which involved Christian Stellini and Roberto Di Zerbi, both sent off for an incident in the second half. Son obviously getting 100 goals in the Premier League. Congratulations to Son Heung-min, the first Korean player to score 100 goals as well in the Premier League era, is massive as well. So congratulations to Son. I also had him in FPL, so that was perfect. We also saw the introduction of Harry Kane, him getting onto the score sheet. Hopefully, Harry Kane and Son can get back to the scoring form that they have. Them two up front should be really good. We also have Brighton, who scored with Lewis Dunk to make it 1-1 at that point. Brighton, I think they got really unlucky, and obviously the PGMOL have apologised to Brighton for the referee mistakes that were made. But Thomas should have really had a penalty appeal, which was turned down, but it should have been a penalty. So I think for Brighton and Tottenham, I think it's just about securing their European push. So Tottenham are really just trying to catch up to Newcastle United. And Brighton are just looking to secure a Europa League spot at this point, but could challenge into the Champions League. We never know what's going to happen for Newcastle United and how they're going to fare. So yeah, that's all I have really for that game in particular. One bit I do just want to add on whilst we are on this discussion is Middlesbrough and Burnley. Welcome back to the Premier League. Burnley at the first attempt. What a job Vincent Kompany has done at the Clarets, and hopefully they can come back to the Premier League and do what they did under Sean Dyche. Maybe challenge for Europe, which they did at one point, but obviously didn't make it past the qualifiers, but just establish themselves as a Premier League team. They can become champions of the Championship on the April 18th against Rotherham away if Burnley win their next 3 games. So they can secure promotion on the 18th of April at Rotherham if they win the next 3. So yeah, welcome back to Burnley for next season. Obviously, Chelsea, for Frank Lampard now, moving back into the Premier League. They lost 1-0. Matheus Nunes scoring a goal of the season contender. Him and Son having a battle for goal of the day and goal of the season, or goal of the month, should I say, to make it more specific. Nunes scoring a Zidane-esque volley at the Molineux to keep them alive in that relegation battle towards the bottom of the table. Chelsea, I think they're just going to stay in 11th, not really do too much. Crystal Palace 1, Leeds 5. I said that the wrong way around. Hopefully Leeds would have won 5-1. I know one Leeds fan who will be listening to this would have wanted that to happen, but it was Leeds 1, Crystal Palace 5. Leeds did go 1-0 up. Patrick Bamford getting his 50th goal for Leeds. Leeds, this is going to be a huge result, especially with goal difference playing a part in the bottom half of the table. So it's not a great result at all for them. For Crystal Palace under Roy Hodgson, it's another win for them. 5 goals as well. Michael Olise is the youngest player to get 3 assists in a single Premier League match, so congratulations to him. Eze performing as well. Really good team performance on the whole from Crystal Palace. Liverpool versus Arsenal, that finished 2-2. Obviously, I've just watched that game, and can I just say, Aaron Ramsdale, what a goalkeeper. We should have probably won 3-2 or 4-2. Salah missed a big penalty as well. So that's not good on his behalf, and I don't think he should be taking penalties for Liverpool in the future. Liverpool, I think, could get Conference League football, maybe Europa League football, depending on other results. For Arsenal, I think they're still going to win the league. I still think they'll be good enough. So looking ahead then into the next week. So for next Saturday, this is going to be the final part of the episode, which is my predictions for next week. Obviously, we're going to have a guest segment each week, so it will look slightly different for next week's episode. But to end off today's episode, my predictions for this upcoming Premier League week is Aston Villa v Newcastle. I'm going to say that's going to be 2-2. 2 teams on top form at the minute, so I do think that will finish 2-2. Chelsea versus Brighton, I'm going to go for a 0-0 draw in that game. Everton v Fulham, I'm going to go for a 1-0 Everton win. Man City versus Leicester, I'm going for a 3-0 Man City win. Tottenham versus Crystal Palace, I'm going for a 2-1 win for Tottenham Hotspur, like they did against Brighton. So that was Tottenham versus Bournemouth, and I still think it's going to be 2-1 to Tottenham. Crystal Palace are facing Southampton away. I got that a bit wrong on my sheet. So I think for the Southampton Palace game, that will finish 1-0 to Crystal Palace. And Wolves versus Brentford for the Saturday, which is, I'm going to say for that, I'll go for Brentford 3-2. I think it's going to be a really good game in that respect. And then on Sunday, Nottingham Forest versus Man United, I'm going to say that game will be hopefully a Nottingham Forest win, but I think it's going to be 2-0 Man United. And then West Ham versus Arsenal, I'm going to go for... I'm going to go for 2-1 Arsenal. So that is my predictions for the upcoming week. That is my review of the Premier League results. As I said, this episode is going to be very congested, but next week's episode is also going to be congested because we're going to have the first guest on the podcast. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the pilot episode. I'm learning on the way as you guys are learning as well. I know it's been a long time, but if you have stuck around to the end, thank you very much. Once again, to anybody listening, thank you for the immense support that you guys have shown for the return of this series in a new format. Next week is going to be even better, I promise you, with a guest coming on to talk about their result alongside me, and it could even be a longer podcast. We could be talking 45 minutes potentially. So thank you very much, guys, for listening, and I hope you've enjoyed listening to me for 27 minutes, and hopefully you leave a like. If you're new around here, please do subscribe. We are trying to get as close as we can to 1,000 subscribers, but I think the next target for me is 200, and then we'll move on from there. Thank you very much for your support. Again, honestly, I could say it a million times, so thank you very much. And yeah, I'll hopefully see you guys in the next one. Take care, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the Premier League results. If your team lost this weekend, don't be disheartened. If I predicted your team to lose, don't be disheartened. But yeah, hope you guys have enjoyed, and I will see you guys potentially in next week's podcast episode, but I could do a separate YouTube video alongside it too. This is the return on YouTube for my channel, and this is the return of the football review revamped to the Premier League review. Thank you everybody for listening, and I will see you guys later. Take care and peace.